Given this morning a lot of talk about AI, I'm happy to tell you the next two sessions are on that. And we've got a power talk with a remarkable story of resilience, leadership, and technological innovation. So please join me in warmly welcoming Dao Jensen, President of Compass UOL, to share her journey and her outlook on the future of AI and grit-driven success. Moderating this session is Kati, Iceva, Board Member of Master 2025 and Director of Engineering at Microsoft. Ladies, stage is yours.
Dobar den, good morning, and thank you for joining us today. We're incredibly fortunate today to have Dao Jensen here with us. So Dao founded Oak Rocket, and that was the first United States West Coast female-owned, minority-owned, born in the cloud company. And with that company, she's been helping customers go through their cloud transformation. For her leadership, she's received multiple awards. I have to get this right. It's a lot of it, but including, she's been recognized by Chase Bank 5 years in a row as one of the fastest female-created companies. So her journey spans from leading enterprise sales at Oracle, Sun Microsystems, and Symantec, building a thriving business from the ground up, then selling it in a strategic merger in Brazil, and that just happened in 2024, this last year, and advocating for digital equity as well. And she did all of that while raising 4 children and being really deeply involved in all the communities she's part of. Welcome, Dao.
Thank you for having me.
So both Dao and I have built our careers in tech. So Dao has been helping customers use cutting-edge solutions and products. I've been on the side of building such solutions at Microsoft for the past 2 decades. However, now, as AI is truly being democratized, we are witnessing a true transformation, not just in how businesses operate, but also in leadership as well. So today, we want to talk to you about that transformation and how we move forward as we go through that transformation. So we'll not only talk about that, but we also want to explore and hear from Dao's own story on leadership, on resilience, and how she really took the unconventional path to success. So Dao, we've been hearing about AI for a very long time. I think I was a couple of years ago here, and one of the things we talked about is how AI is coming, everybody's going to use AI. But that still felt a little bit in the future. We were still kind of like talking about it. And now we have all these tools available, like ChatGPT. I'm sure most people in this room are using ChatGPT in their daily lives. We have Copilot. We have other AI models available everywhere. So I think that the change is actually happening now. So I wanna ask you, how do you see that changing the way the businesses operate? And even like with software development, I think it's changing that as well.
Correct, it is. There's faster decision making that needs to be done and a lot of automation that can be done with AI. It's not a new thing. It just happens to be something that is now more affordable and more readily available to every individual. So then the viralness of it comes out, right? And it needs to have something that you can use as a productivity tool to be able to do more collaboration among your different departments and business units and among your partners and vendors. So we really believe that it's not about the technology, but it's about taking the tool and bringing it into the core of your business, right? We have 2,000 engineers that are certified in AI and 6,000 engineers completely in Brazil focused on cloud migrations. And your decisions are not now based on quarters, but they're based on weeks. How fast can you move within each week, as we call it a sprint in IT technology, right? And you can't wait a whole quarter anymore to make some of these changes and decisions, especially as your competitors aren't doing so with AI. And being in the intersection of AI and technology for the past 2 decades, what I'm seeing is the need for us to not see it as a tool, but how we use it to help our business transform how we interact with our clients, our vendors. How is it a tool, not the way we do things, but we don't start from just building something for AI's sake. We have to build it because our customer needs it, and then use our AI to make it easier, quicker, faster, and smarter.
Thank you for that. And so that's a really good introduction to this, but what exactly, what kind of changes do you see the companies make with AI?
I think it comes all the way down to even just company culture, right? If you don't have the mindset to be able to be innovative and open the doors for all the changes, companies are not just being able to be an AI company because, I built a ChatGPT for my customer. But it's really, how do you take it in your entire process of your business, from recruiting to training to offboarding, right? How much of that, I sold my company last year 100% in cash, but I took that and put it into a CPG Vietnamese food business for sauce. And we hired our president using AI recruitment tools with a company that didn't even do any recruiting for food. They did recruiting for technology. And my boyfriend said, there's no way they're going to be able to find us someone, in the food business. They're just a tech AI company. I said, AI is AI. We just have to tell it the profile we're looking for. And it ended up hiring not only our president, but our vice president of sales. So in our food company, even though it'll be tech to sauce that we're going into now, right? Everything in the business, from building an application where we're going to help you not only be the blue apron, build a food at your house, but use AI, look at your refrigerator, take a picture, and we'll give you the 20 different options of ingredients and dishes you can make with that app and our sauces.
So that's very interesting, but you've been in this industry for a long time, and people hearing this might think, well, you were in the tech, you know the tools, and now you're talking about a food business, and you were able to apply it to the food business. And some people might be thinking, well, that's great, but I have this traditional, older business, and taking that and actually modernizing, it's harder. I'm sure a lot of people here have legacy tools, they have legacy systems. So what I want to ask you is, why is now the right time to modernize, and what happens? Should these businesses think to modernize, and if they don't, what's going to happen? What is the impact?
This is the time to modernize your legacy applications and your legacy businesses. That's what's going to make you different than your other competitors if you don't adopt it early. Right now, we at Compass help people shorten the cycle of their legacy systems by 50%. So you can use AI to take an old legacy COBOL system or .NET, read it, even if your developers are gone and the architects of your solution, and be able to tell you what and how that app is built, do 50% of the work, and then our engineers come in and do the other 50%. So even though you might not be in technology, and most of you don't know, I didn't have a technology background. My background is finance. I happened to get into technology because some company hired me out of college to be a finance intern. And I said, what the heck is Java? Who is Sun Microsystems? Why do I give a head count for every E10,000 thing that we sell? What is an E10K? And I think that actually makes you more valuable. People who are not in technology are the ones who are going to use this technology more uniquely if you take the time to think about it. And think about, if I need something, can I find a partner like Compass who can just tell me, if I could do this in my wish list, in the construction business? Those are the areas that are going to be the most interesting. Whoever thought that we would be ride sharing and going in with a stranger in a car, right, 10 years ago? But it's that type of vision, leadership, that type of young, innovative thought process that will change each one of your industries. And I really compel you to just take that time and talk and partner with others who could take your industry to the next level, where you then not become a me too, but you become a leader in this area.
Thank you. So I think you've convinced us that, AI is here, right? Like, we have the right tools available, and they can be applied to businesses. Then they can be applied to different businesses, as you mentioned, like from technology to food industries and other industries, and also that they can be, that it's the right time to like modernize these things, and that there are ways to do that. So I think that all sounds very, like, it really sounds great. However, I myself have been working with data. I have been working with data, building data products for over 2 decades, with different tools and levels. And one thing that I've become aware over all this time working with data is that data quality is really difficult. So what do we mean by that, right? Like, we're taking data from different places, and sometimes the data from certain maybe sensors, even like parts, doesn't come in, or maybe it's not clean, so that the system is really not processing that data. So other things with the data can come in. So what does that mean? Like, there are the signals, there is the data, but when it's gathered in these systems, it might not be clean and complete. So that's been always a problem, but today that data is taken, and that's what actually feeds the AI models. So AI, the decision it makes, at the end of the day, is based on the data on which it's trained. So you can imagine that if the data is not good, what AI is suggesting is not going to be good as well. So there is a saying, especially now you might hear it more, garbage in, garbage out. So what I'm curious is, Dao, as you see your clients go through the transformation, and as you see them adopt AI, is this a problem that they're seeing? And if it is, like, what do they need to do? Like, what are you advising them to do? How do they make sure that when they have AI, actually they're getting out the right insights?
Yeah, so it's a well-known fact that most people only do pilots of AI, right? We're testing it, but we can never go into production. And a lot of companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, their salespeople are not seeing the money that's supposedly in AI, right? In terms of, if you only do pilots, nothing goes full-blown in terms of spend for cloud or spend for data centers. But the reason that is because, as you said, the data's bad. And if you do a pilot and the data's bad, you're never going to go into production, because your test product, your minimum viable solution, isn't going to be good enough for the executives to take a look at, or your board. So at Compass, we're proud to say 100% of our clients have gone into production with any of their AI projects, right? And Amazon has helped us give our clients the money to do that, so that they don't have to put in their own skin in the game from the very beginning. So data garbage in, garbage out. Ask a bad question, you're going to get a bad answer, right? You might want that answer, but you're not really asking it. It's like asking, will AI replace salespeople? I'm more of a salesperson at heart. Well, that's the wrong question. It's not going to replace salespeople. The question should be about, will AI help salespeople build relationships faster? Do we need less salespeople, right? So we at Compass help assess your data, the quality of it. We help you clean it. We help you streamline that data and automate it to continue to be clean, and then put you into production. It's not fancy, it's not sexy as the AI part of the house, but is integral to be able to use it for the right products. And, but it is actually probably where these companies are seeing the money, is the data cleansing, data migration, and we are still missing good tools for automation of data because they're all over the place, right? They're in spreadsheets, they're in people's hard drives, they're everywhere. And you've got to find a way to be able to get that and then continue to keep cleaning that and continue to keep ensuring the data is clean.
So if I generalize that, I think what you're saying is AI is the shiny thing, and then on the other end, we have the data that feeds AI, and we think of that like this is not something new and innovative, but this is where it feels like companies really have to spend a lot of time, and it's not just companies. I think it's like it's governmental institutions, and whoever really thinks of using AI, they should be really, really paying attention that the data is clean and maybe put some quality controls early on to really ensure that the data goes in a way that it can be.
Well, and even afterwards, AI, ChatGPT is not the Bible, right? Or it's not the Bible of data. People think that answers they get out of ChatGPT is the answer, and half the people aren't verifying it, especially our kids in college. And then they're sending and submitting these answers in, right? And the data is only as good as it sees, as someone said earlier yesterday, right? Only 10% of the data sorry, I was in a symposium last week in New York. Only 10% of the world's information is on the web. That's where ChatGPT is getting the data, right?
Yeah.
And so we need to be sure that we're validating and verifying and having governance after the fact as well, and making sure that the answers we're getting are correct.
Yeah, I think that's very insightful. I think this really makes me think about AI, that maybe we should all think of AI as another tool, and maybe when we think about organizations, we almost think as another team member, right? Because every team member has their skills, but none of them is perfect, right? And we all work together to make solutions happen. So even though very, very often we're very impressed with the results we can get, we also have to be aware that there could be bias, that there could be mistakes, and we have to take it with that same approach that we are taking everybody else, right? And then give it grace and not say just because it got something wrong one time, right? We improve it and we move on.
Well, I think people take AI as a tool, and we need to consider and start thinking about AI as being your business partner. The problem we're doing is we're going to AI and saying, do this for me, do that for me, answer this thing, do this assignment for me. But what we're not doing is taking it to a better level, a second level, which is saying, AI, if I give you all the data about my board member and the profiles of everyone in my company, look at my PowerPoint slide and tell me what questions they would ask me so that I can prepare for those questions later. And what did I not present that I should be presenting? So try to treat it as more your business partner and not a tool, and you will take yourself 80% farther than most everyone else is doing with AI.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, thank you. So as AI opens new capabilities, what kinds of new businesses do you think will start emerging? And really, like if somebody thinks of innovating, right? Like with AI being here, can you offer some areas that you think might be interesting to innovate in?
Yeah, I'm really excited about AI in healthcare. Compass has partnered with a company called Everything ALS, which is a nonprofit looking to help solve neurodegenerative diseases and track how quickly a person is moving along in dementia, Alzheimer's, ALS. Some of these people don't even get diagnosed of ALS for 2+ years. So the founder is a good friend, and her husband was the guy who wrote the S3 paper for AWS with 30 patents. It took them over 2 years to figure out he had ALS, and by that time, he died within 18 months. And he was 52 years old, and I told her the only reason he passed away was for you to solve ALS. And she's been spending the last 4 to 5 years gathering data from patients, from pharmaceuticals, from the healthcare industry, the hospitals, where data is really hard to share. But she's created it so it's an opt-in model and a data lake that then can take that and take face recognition, take people walking and how they stride and how the muscles is deteriorating in a walk, and be able to help the industry because they're willing to voluntarily share it. So we have given them scholarships to also ensure that people in healthcare are more familiar with AI so they can solve problems their patients are having. And so this is just an example of an area, I believe, that diseases, as she says, will not be cured in the labs and the medical labs. It will be cured in the data centers and the cloud.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I also feel that that's an area where we can really see innovation and we can see much more progress. And I think it's exciting because that impacts people's health, right? Not just business itself.
And in the traditional areas we've talked about, right?
Yeah,
logistics, construction, legal, where data is hard to be shared, data is supposedly not that important, right? It could be just on your mobile phone now, and the people who are working in your construction sites can enter data in and then get feedback back from everyone else's inputs on what they should be looking out for as concerns. So to me, if you've ever followed like Danaher or IAC, they take traditional businesses like newspapers and they turn them into technology-focused industries and then multiply the value of that business by 5x. We all should be doing that with our businesses, right? In order to have a higher multiplier if our goal is to increase higher revenues or to sell the company.
Yeah, that's very inspiring. That's truly inspiring. And I think that this change is inspiring. But I also want to acknowledge for a lot of people, be it modernize the business or create this new business using AI, might also feel more overwhelming, right? We have new tools, new technology coming, and doing that at scale, like it really can sound hard. So I think this is where leadership comes in. So Dao, you've not only like created businesses, sold businesses, led businesses.
One.
Well,
So
you've led
yes.
one business.
Sold
yes,
one.
But
Yes.
you've worked at multiple ones.
Yes, of course.
But you've done it also like through really big challenges, both business and personal. And you've also done that in a very unconventional way. So I want to switch the discussion a little bit from just talking about AI, but really about talking about that side of the story.
Sure.
So first, like you sold your company without a banker. That's not a typical way how one sells a company. And you've generally like built your path to success in a very unconventional way. So a lot of people, like, you know, we all like have mentors, talk to different people, read books, and try to find that path to success. How do you succeed? These are the right steps to take. I don't think that's what you did. Like reading everything, knowing through what you went, like talking to you, it was a very different path. So I really want to hear about that part. Like first, what drove you to do it that way? And second, why do you think it worked for you?
Well, I didn't have a choice. As an immigrant at 4 years old from Vietnam after the war, I was born the summer of the war of Vietnam, and my family were boat people. You know, we came to a land in Minnesota being basically outsiders, knowing no one, having no resources. And my parents eventually had to learn how to run a restaurant without ever having run one before. So my background is I'm a single mother of 4, never expected to be a teenage pregnant mother. I had a full scholarship. I was the youth governor of my state of Minnesota, wanting to be the first Asian US president when I was 15. Maybe still there's a chance. But at 19, going to college so early, I met my husband and became pregnant at 19 years old and quit college against my mother's wishes. And, you know, one of 7 kids. I was probably her most likely to become US president. And I chose and followed my heart and decided I'm going to be a mother instead. I'm going to quit school. And all my aspirations needed to be relooked at. And had 3 more kids with him. And, worked and got into tech because it made money instead of politics at the time. And then, nothing ever happens the way you want it to in climbing your life. It's never just a ladders corporate. It's like, to me, it's been chutes and ladders, if you know that game, right? You go up and then you go back down for some reason. And I talk a lot about that. And so, the marriage didn't end up working. He didn't believe in me after 15 years that I could become CEO of my own company. And so I had to get divorced in order to break away and live how I wanted to live. And at that time, I was working for Symantec. John W. Thompson was going to become the chairman of the board of Microsoft. And at 30, I was impatient for my corporate ladder moves. Eventually, I went to smaller companies trying to prove myself, thinking I'll be a bigger fish in a smaller sea. Did well, always did well in sales to afford San Francisco living, but I got fired. I was against everyone who told me what to do, and I didn't believe in half the things that they wanted me to do. And that forced me to start my own business. Luckily, I had a manager who saw my capabilities and skill sets, because I never expected to be a business owner, and said, Dao, maybe you are going to have a problem with your diplomacy in a big corporation. And you break the mold and you break the glass, so maybe you should just become a business owner. So with $40,000, I decided and asked my customers, what should I focus on? Well, if you look at Harvard Business School, they'll tell you macro versus micro. Look at where the economy is going and focus on that if you can future look. And so AWS had not broken out their revenues from Amazon.com at the time, but people knew in the tech world that it was moving. So, okay, I'll build a business for $40,000 on AWS, knowing nothing except some word called EC2. Didn't know what S3 was, didn't know anything. And I just used my sales skills to go talk to my customers and say, what do you need? What are you seeing? And figured out where that niche was, focusing on that strength. And everyone was migrating, but they were not helping people save money on their Amazon cloud bill. All the big Fortune companies. So with my finance background, I decided, great, I'm going to focus on helping people save money on cloud bills. And that's how we become one of the fastest 50 women-owned companies in the United States, because the bills came to us and they would go from $4 million, and 18 months later went to 30 million with my client, right? Wow. Because they were tech startups, and we'll talk about that, the difference from selling to tech startups and to large Fortune 500s and why you need both. But I didn't have a choice. And the definition of entrepreneurship is being able to do something without the resources, right? Making things happen without the resources there. I mean, I've been in Macedonia only for 2 days, my first trip, so thank you for inviting me. And it seems like all the stars might not be aligned for you, right? Not everything that you want to be one of the power countries here in Europe. But do you wait for that? Or do you just get started and hope that you can pivot and power align over time? And that's what I did. I decided figure out what I'm doing, and then started pivoting over time as I needed to, losing various potential business partners, various potential customers, being sued, being able to get a scholarship to Harvard because I needed that business training because I couldn't afford it with 4 kids at an $8 million business at that time to go to Harvard for $50,000 for 3 weeks. But you figure out who your resources are, who are the people that believe in you, the clients who follow you, the mom and dad who cook for your customers instead of going out and taking them to fancy restaurants, and you make it work.
Yeah, I really like that, and I really hope that a lot of people here relate to that, as you mentioned. Sometimes we feel that we don't have always the perfect circumstances here, and I think this what you described, it sounds like you had far from the perfect circumstances to get where you are.
Yeah, I mean, Mike said, right? Think big, move fast, and take small steps. And Harvard will tell you, think big, do it right, and do it with style. Fred Astaire.
I like that. So it's not just what the circumstances are when you start and when you think about starting something. There are a lot of challenges, as we all know, across the way, right? And Dao had a lot of challenges coming her way as she was going through her journey. And for that, she's really known as a really resilient leader. So I want to talk about that side of the story as well. So I want us to really share, like, what was that defining moment where resilience really made a difference in both your life and career?
Thank you. You know, what else could be better than COVID for most people when your cloud company is doubling year over year? But in the first 12 months of COVID, I lost 3 people in my family, and I'd never lost anyone in my life. So I lost my mother, my brother-in-law, and a soulmate. Within months, my father moved in with me. I was his favorite of 7 children, and he was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer. And he didn't want to be a burden. And within a few more months, he killed himself in my house, with my children in the house. And I said, what else could I handle? And I was in the middle of selling the business. And I continued that. But 6 months later, my daughter, my youngest 16-year-old daughter, died accidentally. And it was months from my closing of my company. And you know, you decide those are the defining moments of what am I going to do? What's important in my life? How many more aspirations have to be let down before I can figure out what really matters and what am I doing all this for, right? I would have given up selling my business and all that money to have my daughter back. But I still had 3 older children. And I've seen other people in my class in school lose children during COVID. And at that point you go, I'm the person I want to be that makes, be underneath me, that my daughter is proud of, even though she passed away. And so within 7 weeks, I went to India and did my first talk about her in front of 350 people at Ink Talk. And I think it's the things like these that we don't share with people that help them understand that nothing can be that bad. You know, people will say to me, that's got to be the biggest grief a parent can go through. And I say to people, look, there are people like my family that went through war, people who have had long diseases and struggled through it, and you have a choice on what you do afterwards. That's what defines you as a leader. And for me, being that mom who could continue to keep going and spend more time with my children, I made the decision, even though my youngest loved my business and wanted to be CEO and kill her brothers for it, to be president, that it was best for my kids to sell the business and continue to be and stay on as president for a few more years, and become a speaker talking about my life experiences around the world. This is my 10th country I've spoken about this to. And being able to tell people that, you know, when your aspiration shatters in life, you just need to find a new purpose that matters. And for me, that's helping women and immigrants and people who don't think they have the resources that it takes to be successful, that it's possible. And anything is possible if you can just put your mind to find a bigger purpose than just money or yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Dao. Thank you, and I'm sure I speak for the audience here when I thank you for sharing that deeply personal, but also very, very powerful story. Thank you. And I think a big takeaway for all of us is how resilience is important in those moments. But I want to ask you, a lot of things are changing, like it's very fast, like everything is much faster moving now than it was. And at these times when we think about leadership, like resilience is one, but are there any other aspects of mindset that leaders should have as they go through these dynamic changing times?
Yeah, I think growth mindset and being humble are the two biggest characteristics I think is important for leaders to continue. And I could have sold and not stayed on as a CEO. And I didn't want to stay on, honestly, because the big corporation that bought me is too bureaucratic sometimes out of Brazil, right? And as Kati said, I didn't even use a banker. I wasn't looking to sell my business. I think these things happen out of karma because you're doing the hard work, right? And because you're learning. So I happened to be at Harvard studying, and in my third class, my buyer met me and said, "We just signed $1 billion contract with Amazon to expand in the United States, and we think you're our last acquisition we could use before we IPO." I said, "I'm not looking to sell." But if you have a growth mindset, you say, "Let me hear more. Let me think about it. How could this work?" And as Katie said, I didn't have a banker. My business was only 25 people and $68 million in revenue at the time we sold. I hadn't done the paperwork to get the financials ready in a data room. I actually fired their banker in my first few months of working with them because, he thought he could buy my company for cheaper if I went on a date with him. And I let the buyer know that, right? You have to just be willing to learn. And I learned along the way what it would take to sell a company, but never had thought about doing it. But because I was willing to keep educating myself and going to these events, activities, talking to VCs and PEs, I knew the difference. I knew if I sold to a strategic instead of a PE firm, I was going to get more money for my dollar, right? I went and asked my competitors, well, I haven't been researching the market. I haven't put my company for sale. Am I stupid to sell this now because of the first buyer that came to me, right? And being just to go ask as if you didn't know anything is what helped me create my company at AWS, is like what's not out there. And being willing to just say, I don't know, why do I care that a file system at Veritas moves fast? It's trying to figure out how it speaks to the customer, to the layman's term of why does it matter? Not technology for technology's sake, but why does it matter? So growth is always going to be important because there's going to be a next thing that comes out like AI, and we have to be open to it, right? Virtualization was just a tool, but it wasn't as pervasive as AI because everyone touches it and sees it. So growth mindset is important because we're all going to continue to evolve. Fortune 500 companies die because they don't stay growing and they become complacent. And that's when the startups take over and become the next Facebook or an Uber.
Thank you. So I think we should all be curious, and even if we've been leaders for a long time, right, we should still have a growth mindset and be willing to, humbleness, and we'll be willing to listen and learn. If we shift from people that have led for a long time to people that are just stepping into leadership role or just starting, like, what advice do you have to them, especially now that some of the older rules don't apply because we feel the times have changed with AI?
Yeah, I get that asked a lot by a lot of young individuals I talk to at universities, and I tell people, and women, especially at organizations, who want to move up into the C-suite. Don't act your title. Be who you want to be. act who you want to be seen as. Go beyond your boundaries and do it right away. Don't wait for the title to act like a CEO. Don't wait for the title or for all the answers to be done to analyze before you start. I got started with $40,000 and didn't know much about Amazon, but I just started going around and calling myself CEO of one. Not most people get past CEO of one, but it's okay to fail. It's okay to then go and they don't remember the number of times you failed before you succeed. I mean, Kentucky Fried Chicken and Walmart didn't get started until they were 50 years old. And so, you know, I say, when you see someone successful, what you haven't seen is the 10 other times they failed. And if you haven't failed enough, you're not playing to your potential. I failed plenty of times on many things, and I can, you know, say I was fired, I can say many other things, but what I can't say is I didn't try.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was really, really powerful. Before we wrap, I know that I'm looking at the signals. Are they going to give us a few more minutes? I think we have one question for the audience. So I have some questions more too, but I think we should switch to this. So the question is, how challenging is the change management regarding sales using AI?
Wow, from sales perspective, I think the hardest people to ever train and get them to follow your rules are salespeople. They don't want to enter data into a CRM system. I never did, and I still don't. I don't think I've even opened up my CRM system. Don't tell my team. And I think what needs to happen is automation and capturing, right? AI isn't just about text. It's about video. It's about speech. So how many people know will.i.am from the Black Eyed Peas? I happened to meet him and eventually sent him to the Harvard program. I met him at a party. And he, for people who don't know, he has a tech startup that Salesforce Ventures put $95 million into. And he basically created what you call Slack meets Zoom meets Google, all of this for creatives. And it's a little longer answer, but stick with me to it. And I said, I was shocked that he knew this much about technology. I said, do you need money for investments? I might have some friends. And he said, no, Benioff, Salesforce Ventures, got money into my company. I don't need it. I said, well, if you are using WhatsApp meets email meets Google, why aren't you syncing your tool to Salesforce's CRM, because no one else syncs WhatsApp, text. I want to know about the 4 F's about my company, my customers, and my prospects. So if my team is texting people, I don't negotiate on email anymore. We negotiate on text. We learn about people's kids on text. We should be syncing text and WhatsApp messages to our CRM, right? Videos, etc. I said, if you did that, Benioff's solution would be so much more powerful than just syncing stupid email, where no one does anything anymore because it's too legal. He said, I don't know what you're talking about. Rihanna would never want her Sephora solution told by others ahead of time. I said, well, there's something called security. Symantec can sell it to you, right? And he said, can I give you my number? Why? He said, because your brain thinks weird. This is why I talk about partnerships, and if you're not technology, put someone who's non-technology with you to come up with the right solutions. So I said, forget my number. Let me show up to your office tomorrow before my coffee meeting at 9. And that's how we became friends and talked about his solution. So you can automate and get a lot of things with AI and data for sales reps without making them enter it and without making them adapt it. But if they see the value in it and how it helps them sell faster, higher, and bigger, you will get people to move and change their culture in any department.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you, Dao, for sharing not just your expertise, but also your journey and your personal learnings. So, and really thank you for coming here and being with us today. Thank you.
And I brought hearts for anyone who wants heart pins. These are my daughter's initials, AK. And they're really meant for you to remember to live by your true heart and follow your true passions and not let an aspiration that shatters keep you from finding a purpose that matters and living by it. Thank you.
Thank you.